Okay, dreamer, please.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're finally going to relook at the tier list. Now if you remember, this was the one I designed 1.5 months after the game launch. Today we're going to find out what are the changes, pretty significant, okay, after 4 months of the game launch, which is about 2.5 months since the last tier list, okay. So this is the new tier list. We're going to jump straight into it. Some of you guys have told me that, the Resistors, the heroes that provide resistance, should be in a separate tier itself, and I think, yeah, that's very valid, so I decided to put them all the way at the top, along with Karin, because I think she's indispensable. You really need her for almost every single mode. You can use her everywhere, so that's how important she is, and she's free at the 7-day mark, so I think she belongs in her own god tier level, okay? So all these heroes will not be appearing in the tier list below, okay, but just keep in mind that you will need them, okay, for certain raids, for certain guild raids, etc. And Karin is basically used everywhere as well. So always remember that even though the tier list shows a lot of heroes that are very good, Karin is pretty much gonna take a spot in that team unless you are super strong and you don't really need a revive or heal, okay? So yep, these are the heroes that you will need. So Gilahan for burn resistance, very good in your scenario raids. Okay, I don't think he's used outside of that, and Celestial Tower, of course. Ian in scenario and raids as well, and Celestial Tower, yeah. Adele, Henry, Scott. Scott is also newly added here because of the Nestra raid, which wasn't existing 2.5 months ago. And then you have Henry plus Karin, yes. Velda and Theon. So the thing about Velda and Theon is that they are also resistance providers. However, unlike the other 6 above, they are not really used in the story at this point. Maybe in future, I'm not too sure. And since they are resistors, I decided that, I'm just going to put them in the same category. And of course, they are used in guild raid as well, so just bear that in mind. Okay, so we're going to move on to scenario. Now for this tier list, I combined scenario and Celestial Tower. So in scenario and Celestial Tower, of course, you have your L plus heroes. These are the very, very strong L plus heroes. Cosette, Shane are the single target dealers. Rudy is a very great tank, and you can use him in your chapter 6 for variant. And of course we have Evan Plus, who is a newly added hero. In fact, there are 10 heroes released within these 2.5 months, so this tier list is really packed. Yuri is a great AoE damage dealer, so if you want her to clear mobs for you when you're clearing your scenarios, she's actually pretty decent there. And then we have the L heroes, okay, the single target dealers, Dylan's and Miss Velvet. We have Rudy as a tank, okay, still a very good tank, and even better with his exclusive equipment right now. And then we have Rachel and Chris as debuffers. Even Yonhee is considered a debuffer, and also Yonhee is an AoE dealer, so she can clear the mobs very easily for you as well. And then we have Len. Now the thing about Len is that you don't really need her in scenario, because I realized that they actually gave you a free one, a free trial land to use for the Nestra Shane raid. So she's not really an SS tier hero in that sense, but if you do use her in your regular clearing, I think that also works out pretty fine, because she does have a lot of CC and she has AoE damage dealing abilities. Claire has a buff removal, so that's very useful in chapter 7 and other chapters as well, especially in Celestial Tower, where you do need a lot of buff removal as well. And then for the other heroes, these are some of the better rare heroes, okay, that are gonna be very helpful in your scenario and Celestial Tower. Len is for suppression. Kate is a great tank. I've come to know that over the past 2.5 months as well, and you will see him being bumped up in many areas later on in the tier list. Rare Rudy is really a suppressor for variant if you don't have Rudy Plus, and Shay is just, incredibly good for outrushing. I almost wanted to put her in the god tier as well, but I realized that you don't really use her in every single content, okay, because there are some content that you just don't use Shay. But yeah, she's very close to being one of those S tier, god tier heroes. And then in the S tier, we actually do have a lot of AoE dealers, so a lot of the newer heroes such as Nestra Shane, Mercure, Juju, Chris Plus, Tristan as well. These did not exist in the previous tier list, so they're newly added over here. They all have a lot of AoE dealing abilities, so I think they are very good in helping you clear mobs if you need, but of course not the bosses in scenario, because the bosses do require a more specific team, which comprises of, you know, current, your resistor, a debuffer, and a damage dealer. Pretty standard combination. But if you're just clearing the mobs, whether it is for, I don't know, farming in AFK farming or something like that, these are pretty decent as well. Okay, and then for Aquila, she's not really used in scenario at all. In fact, you know, but I'm just putting her here because she's a new hero, just to show you guys her placement. I mean, she can be a good buffer for your damage dealer because she does buff the damage dealer and protect him or her pretty well, right? So I think it's possible you can use her if you really want to try her out. And some people also have said that maybe in those quests where you need to clear with 2 men, she's actually pretty good because she actually protects your damage dealer and provides immunity for them. So there's a chance that your damage dealer may be able to clear those 2-man quest achievements. Okay, Luki Plus, I actually bumped him up from B tier, non-existent B tier from before. The reason for that is because I felt that his AoEs are pretty useful and he does give a lot of attack speed and movement speed, so that can come in pretty clutch in certain scenarios as well. And then Windigo is newly added to the A tier because of its ability to do the Nestra chain. But then again, yeah, as I said, you don't really need a suppressor for the Nestra chain in the scenario itself. Dion is also bumped up, I believe. Dion, his damage reduction can be pretty clutch, especially for newer players who do not have a reliable tank, who only have healers and damage dealers. I think you can also try to use Tion for your damage reduction. With that respect, I think Ian should be here as well. Okay, I will edit Ian in later on in this part as well. Okay, moving on, we will come to Field Expedition. For normal Field Expedition, I actually removed a tier. I removed all the tiering for it because I feel that it's kind of strange to tier heroes in just casual normal Field Expedition at the moment. Okay, normal maps, because they are all very doable, and with good gear, any hero can be used, to be honest. Okay, it's not very difficult. But I've categorized the heroes such that it's easier for you to, you know, determine what roles they have. So we have a whole lot of tanks that can be used in regular normal Field Expedition. Okay, you can use Velda, Rudy's, Evan, even Kate is extremely good, as I mentioned, but I'll talk about him later on in the greater Field Expedition. The Tristan Plus is actually a very decent tank, if I just came to know, because he has pretty low cooldown, he has a chance to taunt, he also has AoE damage, he also protects your support hero. Okay, so any place where you do run a support hero, I think Tristan can be there to protect him or her. And of course, we have the typical tanks, Velda and Windigo as well. And then we have a very good team of support heroes, namely the battery team, okay, Luki, Shay and Serena, and Ian for damage reduction, also pretty good, and he heals, okay. Melissa Plus for reduced critical damage, reduced critical hits. And then we have a whole string of AoE damage dealers, which is this set of heroes. They all do AoE damage, so they are very good in helping you do Field Expedition, regular Field Expedition. We also have some single target damage dealers over here. Okay, these heroes, they are more strategic for you and can help you to clear the bosses faster. And at this point in time of the game, I feel that the boss chance is getting increased because you have your guild masteries. I think you have your masteries as well. All these masteries, and if you have the pets that increase the boss encounter chance, all these things do contribute to that percentage of you meeting the boss. And I feel that, you know, if you are really meeting the boss that often, these single target damage dealers will make a difference in your farming efficiency as well. So you may not need to rely just on AoE damage dealers. Okay, so yeah, it really is kind of like a free-for-all for the regular Field Expedition. However, for the greater Field Expedition, so there's tiering for this because there's a very, I would say, specialized team, okay, you can set up for farming in greater maps, especially very hard difficulty. So it will comprise of a damage dealer, which is namely these 5. Okay, these 5 are great damage dealers. Of course, we have the rare versions of them like these. Okay, And then we have two debuffers, two potential debuffers. Chris, they can also be damage dealers actually. Yeah, so it really depends on your team. Kate is known for being extremely good in field expedition green maps because of his potential to have permanent damage immunity because of the way his skill works, such that his cooldown, when his cooldown is low, okay, you will just reapply the immunity, and sometimes if you have enough time acceleration accessories, you can actually get him to reapply the immunity over and over again without any break in between. So he becomes a very good taunter and immunity tank. Extremely good hero. I've been using him for the past 2.5 months and I think he's super good. Okay, even my Rudy can't really compare to him. Okay, firstly, my Rudy is low level, of course, but the thing is, Rudy does take damage and you need his ultimate, his link, his shield, okay, all that to be able to really protect your team. But with Kate, he actually taunts the enemy and this is going to help so much. And of course, we have Shay here, who is going to be your outrusher. She's very good as well. So if you actually run a Rudy team, you can actually run Rudy and Shay together. I think they will make your whole team extremely bulky because he will continuously cast his ultimate, which will link all your heroes and reduce the damage they take and also provide the shields needed. So if you're not running a Kate team, then you can run a Rudy and Shay team. Of course, again, I need to remind you guys, Karin is here, okay? Karin is here. You have to use Karin in your greater map farming as well. But the thing, for me, I run Karin and Kate, so I can actually use two other damage dealers such as, Evan and Cosette. Okay, especially right now when they have expanded the proficiency levels, you will want to try to have your Legend Plus heroes in the field expedition going on so that you can farm their proficiency to a much higher level and a much shorter period of time, right? So for me, I'm running Kate and also Karin. You can also use a damage reducer. Okay, the damage reducer here will be Ian or Theon. Theon uses it on his ultimate skill, while Ian, I believe, does it on a regular skill, I think. Yeah, but either way, both of them do reduce the damage you take, and I think that is extremely important as well because he has clutched so many times in the early stages. Theon is a better damage reducer because he's of rare grade and he will have greater stats to tank more damage. Whereas Ian, because he's of a greater grade only, he has lower stats, so there's a risk that, if you don't have a proper healing team, for example, if you don't have enough healers or you have very low level healers, Ian may be in a little danger. So you can actually run Theon, Kate, Karin, and a damage dealer. I think that is one of the safest teams to do your farming in greater maps. Okay, then we have the S tier. You can actually run these heroes as well. I've seen people run the battery team in greater maps, very hard difficulty. Okay, it also works because you get a lot of movement speed, you get a lot of ultimates and heals, you also get attack speed. So it kind of works out with Lucky Plus, but I don't think it is, the most efficient way. Because if you're using the battery team, then you're kind of losing out potentially in your proficiency farming as well. Now, the reason why I put Adele in S tier is because he is reliant on Rachel. So if you do want to farm with Adele, you will need to have Rachel on the team. Okay, even though Adele has his own burn mechanics going on, but I feel that with Rachel, this will really speed things up. And in farming, you really want to maximize the efficiency of your farming process, right? So having him and Rachel will really help things out. Of course, you can try to use him alone, but I don't think it will be as efficient as the other damage dealers who can really hold their own ground, okay, without any need to apply debuffs or whatsoever. Yeah. And in the A tier, you can also run these heroes, okay, for your farming, but they're not that recommended. But for newer players who lack all the other heroes mentioned here, I think these are still worth a try. Okay, if you are really free to play and you don't have many L heroes, you can actually run something like Kate, Karin, Theon, and maybe Shay or something like that. So you don't really even need these A tier heroes. Okay, just bear that in mind. Like if you have these heroes in the S tier and SS tier, I believe it's good enough. Next up, we come to raids. So now we have one more additional raid. In fact, two more additional raids. One is the Nestra Shane raid and one will be the Catastrophe raid. So I've expanded this. Previously, it was just a 4-man and 8-man raid. Now it's 4-man, Salios, and Catastrophe because the heroes used are totally different. Now for the 4-man raid, of course, we have the typical damage dealers. We also have a range of suppressors that you can use here. Okay, they are all very good, so either one will be fine. In fact, I want to shift Rudy down to S tier because obviously he cannot be, you know, on the same level as Rudy plus, and same for Shane. Actually, I think these eventually they will be moved down, okay, because they are overall less competent than their Legendary Plus version. For damage dealers wise, all these are very good. Now if you're using Rachel in your raid, best in Lizardria, I think Adele is going to be a great damage dealer there, but because Adele is a melee hero, you know, using him in Lizardria can be a little difficult because you have to dodge all the poison pools, whereas using a ranged dealer like Cosette is going to be still far superior in that case. Then we have the S. I think I'll just talk about all the SS tier. Okay, yeah, I'll just focus here. Okay, for Salios, you have a whole range of damage dealers, but the main core of the team really depends on your support units. Support units being like Shay, Chris, Rachel, Rudy. Okay, these are the most important support units. Of course, your suppressor. So suppressors can be your Ming or Mercure, either one. So 5 units are basically kind of locked down in the team. The other 3 units in your team can be damage dealers, but as long as you have the 5 support heroes, Rudy, any Rudy, Rachel, suppressor, Shay, maybe Luki if you want, yeah, you can go up to even 4 damage dealers. That's completely fine. And for the Catastrophe raid, you are going to be focused on healing and surviving. So at this point, these are the 8 heroes I will strongly recommend having on the same team. Okay, if you don't want to use repeated heroes like Rudy and Rudy, that's also fine. Remember, Karin is still here. even sometimes I forget. Yeah, Karin is still here, so Karin will fill up that 8th spot if you are not using 2 Rudy. Same for Salios, you will need Karin here. I forgot. So it will be Rudy, Rachel, Karin, Mercure, Shay. Karin is always around. Remember that. Okay, for the S tier, for 4-man raids. For 4-man raids, I put Chris here because he can double up as a debuffer and a damage dealer, of course. But I think, you know, compared to, because 4-man raids are so limited in terms of the hero usage, whereby you definitely have Karin on the team, and then you have a resistor and you have a suppressor. So that's 3 spots out of 4 gone. Now, if you want to compare Chris to the other damage dealers, you know, actually, he potentially can be moved up. Yeah, I think he can be moved up. So I'm gonna do that in the final version of this. I'm so sorry. I think he will be moved up over here, and I think Adele may be moved down instead, because I think his usage is really limited to only Lizardria, and yeah, even there he is not that efficient. So I think I will swap these two. Just bear that in mind. I mean, sometimes even as I explain things, you know, I figure new things out along the way, so please understand. Okay, then we also have Yonhee. If you're really lacking a single target damage dealer, which I don't think anyone should be lacking, you can use Yonhee for sure. And then Cheng Chen is also a very good single target damage dealer. In fact, I think Cheng Chen is even more superior than Yonhee herself, okay, in terms of that. So if you do have a Cheng Chen and you don't have any other L hero, I think you should build your Cheng Chen for that. Worst comes to worst, you can use Greater Miss Velvet, even though her stats are really lacking. But if you have good gear, you know, why not? And then you also have these other suppressors that are less capable, less tanky in terms of stats, okay, compared to their L and R plus versions. So yeah, they are still here. So for the Salios raid, these are also possible heroes that you can use as part of your 8-man team. Serena is actually pretty good, I would say, but using her would mean 1 less damage dealer you can use. So that is why I didn't choose to put her in. And furthermore, she kind of buffs AoE damage in that sense, but her really strong point is that she heals your team a lot. She keeps your team alive. and she also is able to reset your skill cooldown, so that's very good. But I would say that, you know, going for damage is still far superior than having her as another team member. And these are other possible but not so recommended options in the 8-man Salios team. Okay. And for the catastrophe rate, you can also use Velder. These are AoE damage dealers, so they are very good in helping you clear the mobs. Okay, the reason why they are not in the SS tier is because ultimately I still want to segregate the healers, because you can actually do without these damage dealers if you heal and tank a lot. Okay, so they are in the S tier because they are viable options. Ian is good for damage reduction and healing, but because he's only a greater tier hero, I think he should be, you know, his stats are not as great, so he cannot heal as much as well, so he's only in the S tier. And these are other AoE damage dealers you can potentially use, you know, if you really lack Yeonhee, because Yeonhee is still the best AoE damage dealer because she has a basic attack that does AoE damage as well. And yeah, so potentially you can use them, but again, focus on your healers. Okay, then we have a newly added mode, and that is Guild Raid. So in Guild Raid, you can use only 12 heroes. Okay, 12 heroes for 3 dragons, and I think most of the heroes you will be using are in the SS tier. If you are not using any hero in the SS tier, then you may lack in some damage in that case. Okay, of course we have other options which we will talk about later. Cosette, Evan plus Shane plus Miss Velvet, Dylan's, they are all your best damage dealers right now in the game, so you will be using them in all 3 raids. I mean, you have to split them accordingly. Cosette usually is used for the Thunder Dragon right now, Evan plus for the Fear Dragon, Shane, Miss Velvet and Dylan's can be used for the Silence Dragon. Okay, Chris and Rachel, they are 2 debuffers that you can use and you have to probably use to deal even more damage. So you have to split them accordingly depending on which dragon you want to put for them. Chris, best used with Cosette of course for the Thunder Dragon, Rachel for Silence or Fear Dragon. Claire is a ranged hero and it removes buff, so she's actually very good for the Thunder Dragon. And the 2 Rudies are actually great tankers for either any dragon. In fact, if you are taking too much damage, okay, and you want to mitigate the damage taken and you want to live a little longer, I think you can use Rudy in any of the other dragons. That will be really good as well. And then we have Adele. Adele is great with wherever you are using Rachel. He is going to be a insane DPS in fact, so just keep him in mind in case you do get him in future and you build him out. You can actually use him in whichever raid you're using Rachel with. And we have the 2 battery heroes, Shay and Serena. They will provide your team with longevity and also outrush for you, so really good. Other alternatives of course will include Melissa for heals, additional healing. Of course, remember Karin is here as well. And you have Velder, Theon and Henry Plus for Guild Raid as well. Okay, Velder, Theon and Henry Plus. Let me just remind you of how they look like. Velder, Theon and Henry Plus and Karin. So all these are also used in Guild Raid. Okay, so yeah, you can also use Ian. I've seen some YouTubers use Ian in the back for additional healing and damage reduction, so longer survivability. Claire is just a poorer version of Legend Claire for buff removal. Yeonhee, I previously did use her before, okay, as my damage dealer. She's also a debuffer in that case, but because we have Evan Plus now, so I kind of took her out. But if you don't have Evan Plus and you are lacking in damage dealers, you can actually use Yeonhee also. Okay, and these are less good units to use in Guild Raid. Okay, Len Plus, Rare Len and Fodina, they are also good. I mean, Fodina has a physical attack increase buff, and Len, she herself has pretty decent damage capabilities. Kate is here for tanking purposes, and Miss Velvet is just a really rudimentary basic damage dealer that, you know, you should have at level 50 right now for sure. Okay, next up we are going into the dungeons. So the dungeons, I have actually combined the rune and elixir dungeon because I feel that the heroes used are really just about the same. There's not much difference right there, even for T15 in future. Okay, so for the gold dungeon, same thing, the battery team is the strongest. Okay, the strongest team you can use for the gold dungeon. It is fast and you survive very well. Okay, just throw in any AoE damage dealer, which I have already grouped them together. They're all here. Okay, here, all here. There's a whole range of AoE damage dealers you can use. Velda is quite good actually in the gold dungeon because he pulls all the piranhas together and you can kill them easily in one shot. So Velda is extremely good. Yonhee is also a great AoE damage dealer because of her basic attacks and her skills. Okay. And then we have two tankers you can potentially use as well if in case you are taking too much damage. Their links will help you mitigate the damage you take. And they also provide shields. So here is one case where Karin is not used, okay? But of course you can use Karin as well, but she is just less recommended in this case for greater farming efficiency. Soulstone Dungeon, I've included Miss Velvet here. Previously we didn't have that and many people commented that, you know, Miss Velvet can be used in Soulstone Dungeon. So here she is. In future I don't know, okay, but I'm just gonna put her here for now until we get T15. So for Soulstone Dungeon, it's better to use ranged heroes of course, or you can use the strategy that I employed whereby I tank my attacks with Rachel. You can also use Shay for outrushing, so one of the better combinations could be Cosette, Chris, you know, Rachel and Shay. So not too difficult, I would say, Soulstone Dungeon. At this point, we are all just waiting for an expansion in the dungeons also because we need more resources. We also feel that I think many of us can tackle T10 very easily right now. For Elixir and Rune Dungeon, you can use any damage dealer. So I have a whole range of damage dealers here for you to use. Okay, be it melee or ranged. Of course, remember Adele must be used with Rachel. And then you have two debuffers, Chris and Rachel as well. 3 potential tanks because the enemies are pretty much gonna zone in on one hero. So you can actually use Kate to tank. I haven't tried it myself, but logically, just thinking out loud, I think it's possible. You can also use the 2 Rudies to mitigate damage, and you potentially can also use the battery team. Shay is actually extremely good on herself. So yeah, Shay can be used for sure in almost any scenario. That's why, you know, earlier I mentioned she's kind of like a god tier. And then for the experience potion dungeon, melee damage dealers are preferred. So this is a whole range of melee damage dealers. You can also use the 2 tanks if you are taking too much damage. Using the battery team is possible. Ranged dealers are less preferred because of the way the Harpy attacks, okay? And in future it will be even more difficult to use ranged dealers. So just keep this in mind. Finally, we come to PvP. So in PvP, this is really based on the top 50 to 100 players. Okay, they have usage in heroes. We see a very heavy usage in these 8 heroes. Okay, it's very slanted. Very heavy usage in these 8 heroes. Velda, Ming, still around, Shane as well, Rudy Plus, newly added to the category, of course, Chris Plus, Yuri Plus, and Evan Plus. Okay, Chris Plus is insanely good in PvP, especially right now because many people have built him out and he's super strong. His death hits very conveniently on you, okay, and you die very quickly. Yuri is great as a range dealer, hits super hard, has a charm which cannot be kind of, you know, what to call it, resisted because there's no resistance divinity for that. So she has kind of an edge in PvP because of that, and she is a ranged hero, so she kind of hits pretty hard from afar, so it's very difficult. And she has revive herself, so if you give her an additional revive accessory, she can revive so many times, which is very annoying. Evan Plus, extremely strong, heals himself, has invincibility, stuns, does more damage to stun enemies. Need I say more? I mean, he buffs himself as well in terms of crit rate and crit damage. So these are the most commonly used 8 heroes, and if you can compose a team out of these heroes, I think you can, you know, with good gear, of course, you can easily climb the ranks in Arena. The PvP meta now is very heavily tank tilted. Okay, we see many comps using 2 Rudies, Chris and Evan. That's a very common comp. Okay, and we also have comps that run Chris, Evan, maybe Ming, Velda and Shane or something like that. Or Rudy, Velda, Chris and Evan. These are very common comps. Okay, with Chris and Evan being the 2 most used heroes, along with Rudy. Legend Rudy. Legend Rudy alone is one of the heroes that have lasted so long in the PvP meta, and even right now because of the tankiness of the whole meta. And then we have the S tier. So these are, oops, I kind of left Len right there. Okay, I'm going to shift her later. So we have these heroes in the S tier. They are less used, okay, but they're still seen within the top 50 to 100 players. Okay, so I decided to put them in the S tier. Karin is climbing up in utility a lot because, okay, I think because she has a very high level right now, many people have developed her, and she's used very well with the 2 tank units, the Rudy and Rudy comp, with maybe Shane Plus or Evan Plus. All these are very strong tank comps that you can run, that people run. Okay, so that's why Karin has been bumped up from the A tier previously to the S tier now. We have seen a fall in the usage of Fodina heavily in the top 50 to 100, and then Spike as well. But I think Spike still has a chance to climb, to remain his, to keep his status in PvP because of his exclusive equipment being released. So I think he still has a chance to remain in S tier. But many people have chosen to forsake him since Evan Plus has come out, and many other stronger L Plus heroes have come out also. So all these L heroes, they kind of take a step back, and many people form teams with just L Plus heroes, which is going to be something we're going to see more commonly in future. When more L Plus come out, okay, your L heroes will take a slight step back. Maybe you will use 1 to 2 of them, but majority of them don't really get used much at the top tier anymore. Even Claire, she was used so well before, has taken a step back. In fact, you know, Ming, with Evan Plus out now, who counters Ming heavily because he always targets DPS heroes first, Ming has also seen a fall in utility, but she's still extremely strong no matter what tier of arena you are in. Okay. And with Yuri now, we also seen a lot of usage for Juju. They are really used in kind of like a range comp. Okay, Juju and Yuri are very good range dealers from the back. Aquila, very few people use her, but she has appeared in the top 50 to 100, so that's why I put her in S tier. Although I feel that she, you know, her utility and her skill set is just decent at best, okay, not super amazing. And then we have all these heroes who have fallen into the A tier. Evan has never gone up anyway. But Miss Velvet and Dylan's have fallen because of the strength in the universal comps that are dominating right now. And Evan just goes straight for Dylan's and Miss Velvet anyway if they appear on the field, because he targets DPS heroes first. So I think they will get nuked extremely fast, and that is not going to be that good. The rest, I think you don't ever see Res Eileen anymore. Mercure, initially I did see him quite a bit, but no longer anymore as well. Okay, his skill set is actually quite bland to be honest. So yeah, he's really just using Celios raid. Yonhee still makes some appearance with alongside Yuri, but it really depends on the comp, and I don't think you can run a comp with just Yonhee alone. Okay, you need to pair her up with another range dealer to make a very specialized range comp for her to be good in. Okay, otherwise I don't really see Yonhee in PvP as well. Okay, so I think these are the tierings for all the legend and L plus heroes. For Len, I will put her in the S tier because she does have good capability in doing CC. Okay, if you build her out well, she's also able to tank quite a bit of damage and inflict CC back onto enemy, and I think that is also potentially good because I think she also has other PvP based mechanics such as knockback, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, so I will put her in S tier. Okay, so overall this is the tier list, and if you want a much clearer HD version of the tier list, be sure to join the Discord linked in the description. And of course, if you have any questions and feedback about the tier list, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I will improve on the tier list over time as well. Hopefully I'll do this every 2 months. So thank you so much, and of course big shout out to my channel members Christopher, Tom, Gonzalo, Jeremy, Fahas, Shilling, and Yamaki, Bilal, Sai, Kong for their support. Stay tuned for more videos. Thank you so much, and see you!